So hello and welcome once again to the channel here on this very busy week. Are you buying the Mavic 3? Are you planning to buy it? Here's just a couple of reasons why I'm not going to buy it. So the Mavic 3, there's no doubt about it, this is an incredible drone and will be even better once DJI have released that new firmware that's coming in January 22. Hasselblad 4/3 sensor, 162mm telephoto lens, 360 obstacle avoidance, the list goes on and on. However, after the launch I've been researching YouTube and researching the internet and just having a good look as to what it's all about. And here's some of the reasons why, like I said, I won't be buying it. So DJI have released this Mavic 3 without any autonomous flights. Quick shots, master shots, active tracking, pano, that kind of thing. So they've launched a flagship drone without any of these features. Isn't that kind of a way of getting your money first and making you wait for all these features? Let's put it this way. If you bought a car that had some features missing off the ECU, then you're buying an incomplete car, aren't you? Now I do know that when they launched the Pro 2, there was a couple of features missing off that, and eventually with firmware updates it sorted everything out. But the firmware update that's due in January 22, is this going to be a complete fix? So will these features actually work after the update? Proof will be in the pudding. So they've launched this drone, prosumer. Is it a consumer drone? Is it a pro drone? I suppose if you bought the Cine version, then yes, you're looking at more pro features. With the ProRes, let's face it, it's a lot of money. So they've released the Mavic 3 with a controller which you can use on the DJI Mini 2 or the Air 2S. It's a standard controller, which I thought was a little bit of a cheapskate really. There's no extra controls. I would have thought they would have put another couple of controls on the back here. I know there's a smart controller which we'll come on to very shortly. Now the Mavic Pro 2, that came with a different controller and that had a lot more controls, and you could also alter stick controls, that kind of thing. So I've DJI cheapened the controller. So my thoughts is, why didn't DJI release a controller very similar to the Pro 2? Got an inbuilt screen, give you lots of data on that screen. With this controller, as I've just said, you do need to use your own screen, unless you're using the new smart controller, which we'll come on to later in the video. So moving on to the smart controller, that is supplied with the Cine Pro version. However, if you buy the standard version or the Fly More combo, you're looking at almost £900 for a controller, which is not back compatible for any other DJI drone at the moment. Whether it will be or not, who knows. Now if you own the original smart controller, that also doesn't work with the Mavic 3. I think that's a bit of a con personally. So in summary, £900 for a smart controller that's only compatible with the Mavic 3 drone. I think that's one pretty expensive screen personally. So the new firmware that's going to be released in January 22, the features for the camera will only apply to the main lens and not the telephoto lens. Now there's a number of features that will only be available for the main lens on this drone. A big YouTuber by the name of DC Rainmaker, if you want to check out his channel, links to his video will be in the description below. He's done a comprehensive list of everything that is supposed to be coming for this latest firmware update in January 22. So if most of the features are only available for the main lens, are you just left with an exploratory lens with this 28x zoom? Is that a gimmick? Could they have spent the money more on the main lens? Another downside is that the Pro settings are only available for the main lens as well, which is a bit awkward when you've got a zoom lens, although a little bit grainy at 28x. I think up to 7x is pretty good. So is that telephoto lens actually just a gimmick? Who knows? It looks pretty impressive up to 7x, as I've said, but I would have thought that spending the extra money on the main lens would have been more beneficial. One of the biggest reasons I won't be buying this is the fact that it has no classification. Now I know I own the Air 2S and that has none either. Unless there's any retro classes given, then they'll all fall into the A3 category. We'll just have to wait and see what beholds in the future. It won't affect me in any way, shape or form, as I generally fly in open space anyway. Waypoints is another issue. As far as I'm aware, unless you can correct me, there's no plans at all to have any waypoints on the Mavic 3, which is probably a little bit off-putting as they were available for the Pro 2. So on to the problems. Now I've noticed on one or two videos on YouTube that the altitude error that we've got on the Air 2S and now on the Mini 2 with the updates, that's also apparent on the Mavic 3. Now it might not be a big deal to you guys out there, so I've been following this over the last few updates on the DJI Fly app. Going back to 1.4.8, it wasn't apparent on the Mini 2. It's always been apparent on the Air 2S to my knowledge. Well, it certainly has whilst I've owned it. And I was hoping that the latest firmware would have put that right. But it just seems to be there all the time. And as I've said, it's apparent on the Mavic 3. I've witnessed this now on 3 or 4 different YouTubers and watched their videos closely, and it sure is apparent. So that's another problem. One of the other things that worries me is this new return to home feature, the advanced return to home. So it uses obstacle avoidance to find its quickest route back to home. However, if you was flying towards some power lines or some telephone cables, would the obstacle avoidance miss those? I don't think they would. And there's been one or two recent YouTube videos where people have crashed the Mavic 3s. So I would have thought that you would have been able to turn this advanced return feature off and go back to the original return to home where you set the altitude. At least with the old system, you set the altitude, the drone goes up, you make sure that it clears any obstacles in the way, flies across and comes back down. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it's always worked. I'm not too sure about this new advanced return to home. So final point, moving on to pricing. The standard 1879 gets you one battery, the drone and the controller, the standard controllers we've already talked about. 2549 for the Fly More combo, 3 batteries included, and a whopping £4,200 for the Cine Pro version, which does include the new smart controller. However, let's just put it into perspective here. £2,549 will buy you at the moment 2 Air 2S's and a Mini 2, and they're all Fly More combos. So it's an expensive drone, and that is probably one of the reasons that probably most of you won't buy it is the price. But that's just my personal opinion. So let me know your thoughts. Have you already bought the Mavic 3? Are you happy with it? Are you a bit unsure about it? Are you waiting until January till all these updates and these firmwares have been updated? Perhaps you can let me know in the comments. It'd be good to hear from you. I'd certainly like to know what your thoughts are if you've already purchased the Mavic 3. So there you go in summary. A few points for you to ponder on. I personally won't be buying it. And I'm sure there's lots of YouTubers out there and lots of ordinary consumers that have bought this drone and completely happy with it. This video is not to knock the Mavic 3. I think it's a pretty good drone. It's just, well, in my opinion, overpriced. There's things wrong with it already. I know we're going to get teething problems with drones and things like that, but that's just my personal opinion. So hope you got something out of this video. Like I say, it wasn't to knock the Mavic 3 at all. I'm quite happy with the Air 2S, the Mini 2, and I'm sure there's a lot of happy people out there already with the Mavic 3. If you've enjoyed it, give it the thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, give it the thumbs up twice, because that always helps. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.